Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, kicking around the Pac-12, and some would say the Pac-12 has been kicked around quite a bit the last few years. We got Michael Wilson on the line from Pacific Takes. You can also join him on his co-hosted radio show on Sirius Channel 211. It's The Dorf on Sports. Michael, first time here to talk to myself. How you doing today?
I'm doing really good. It's a pleasure to join you, and I do apologize for not getting that message way back in October. It just never showed up.
I do it all the time
on mine. Yeah.
I don't get back to people all the time. I try to get back to everyone, but
right.
That stuff gets lost constantly. No worries there. Kind of a lost season for the Pac-12 2 years ago. They go 1-8 in bowl play. Their champion USC looks bad against all the major out-of-conference competition. Maybe a little bit of a bounce back this year. They at least won some bowl games, very narrow wins, very narrow losses for the most part. They competed in every game, but again, held out of the college football playoff, and it's going to be kind of difficult considering that they need to win these major games outside of the conference early in the season and fail to do so, in particular with Washington, Auburn. Your thoughts about where this conference truly stands? We know what the perception is, but is it as bad as what a lot of people think across the country?
That is a good question, but when I have to deal with these teams and go watch these teams, I do think the perception is the reality. I mean, let's face it a little bit. We don't have, we don't have a team that is dominant, like it's going to be consistent top 10 or a couple teams in that top 15 and with possibly making a run, towards a playoff. I mean, the playoff for us right now is such a pipe dream because we're just not, the talent is not there in the Pac-12 right now. In my opinion, and I see a lot of Pac-12 games. I've seen a lot of Pac-12 quarterbacks and coaches and stuff. I think the coaching is there. I think getting Kevin Sumlin down there in Tucson was good. I think certainly getting Chip Kelly out at UCLA, and they started to perform a little bit better for him towards the end of the year. So I think Chip's going to get it turned around in Westwood. The only question is how long is it going to take him? People in Los Angeles get a bit antsy when you can't turn it around in a season or maybe a season and a half. But, you look at what Chip did at Oregon, and certainly it tells you that, he can coach. I mean, I don't like these people that say he can't coach and look at his NFL stuff. And the guy can coach. We have Herm Edwards here in Phoenix at ASU. And, it took me a while to get on the Herm train. A little bit, but after I go to practice, I go to the games. You talk with the guy, and their focus is on doing this like an NFL franchise. It's kind of a business model. Herm is he is pretty hands off during practice, and even during games, he's a real calm guy. But I will tell you this: what you see with Herm Edwards on TV, that's exactly what you get as a coach here in Tempe. I think Washington, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon, and it always seemed like Washington was the dominant team in the Northwest. And Chris Peterson, he's one of my favorite coaches in the conference, certainly has turned around that program. Now he has to replace Browning at quarterback this year. He has a running back he has to replace as well. But the thing with Washington is with Peterson, he has kept all of the major in-state recruits. He's kind of roped off Washington a little bit, and he's getting those in-state kids to stay. And then he's going national. He gets a lot of kids from LA. He takes some kids here from the Arizona area. I think I do think Washington, if you had to point to a team that everybody tends to think is going to be the champion, and like they were this year. I mean, they won. I was up at the Pac-12 title game, and they won it this year. Washington seems to have, for right now, the most consistency in terms of winning games. Oregon is still, everybody points to Oregon. I mean, they're going to get Justin Herbert back, and the kid can play. I was a little surprised he stayed. in Eugene with a lot of the draft prognostications that kid had, and will continue to have. I mean, he is a good quarterback. So there's a lot of good things happening, but for right now, we're just not on the same level as the Big 12, the SEC, everybody else, the ACC, the Big 12, and the Big 10. So, getting a question to you, like, what's your perception of the Pac-12? Way out east.
My perception is that so at the end of every season, during the off season, I will take all the Power 5 results, and I got a whole metric of a system and weigh them out and so forth. As most recent as 2014, I thought the Pac-12 competed on the field as well as anybody in the country, but it has dropped off considerably since then. I do think that the conference is deep. I think it's deep with decent teams, but just decent teams. There aren't awful teams outside of Oregon State. Like, there's not a glut of like a 3-team Big Ten bottom of Illinois and Rutgers and teams like that.
Right.
Not as many, but there are no elite teams, as you mentioned. Washington's been the best team in the conference for the past 3 years, for the most part. USC obviously won the Rose Bowl a couple of years ago. The issue with the conference, I think, is that if you look at every other conference, you see about 2 to 4 schools that have proven that they can be elite. The only school in the Pac-12 that has proven to me over the last 30 years that they can be elite is USC. Even though Washington's the best program right this second, USC is the one school that can be elite, that has shown it and proven it. Stanford was on the cusp there for about 5 years. They were playing near that level.
Right. No, and I would tend to agree with you with that perception. I mean, it's funny. Everybody out here, and I think naturally wants USC to be good. Like I've always had this attitude with USC, is that if USC is good, that helps college football as a whole. I think you got to have that. You got to have some kind of dominant team out here out west, and right now it's not the Trojans, it's the Huskies, like you were saying. But the time will tell. But I will say this: when you take a look at the players in the SEC and the ACC, Big 12, Big 10, and you look at their size, we're just smaller. We look like a JV squad out there compared to some of these teams that kind of come in. We had Michigan State come into Arizona State this year, and I'm telling you, like, when Michigan State took the field, even though Michigan State lost, they're just bigger. I mean, they had some dudes when you looked at them. I think the only team that kind of looks big to me is Utah and Washington. Utah's coach, Kyle Whittingham. I don't know how he doesn't get bigger offers from bigger schools. But that guy, I will tell you, we were talking about recruiting earlier. That guy can recruit, and he has something kind of rolling up there in Salt Lake City. He just doesn't get the publicity that he would because he's in Salt Lake City. But it's interesting to hear national people like you, and it's almost like you kind of agree with me that here's a set of facts that we know. And here's a set of facts that it's just, it's wishful thinking to me in terms of, what this conference is going to be. And you mentioned the bowl games. Yeah, hallelujah, we won more than one bowl game this year. But like you said, there are some narrow wins and there's some narrow losses. And I think it's just that a lot of those losses was just a play here, a play there, a turnover here, a turnover there. And we're talking about a totally different kind of scenario with the Pac-12 in terms of football.
So on the plus side, you won some bowl games. On the negative side, if you put those games into context, I thought it was a positive that we didn't see any 42-10 games, but at the same time, Who was the best school, the best team that the Pac-12 beat in postseason play? I'm thinking off the top of my head, it was Michigan State, who went 7-5 in the Big Ten. So it wasn't a great Michigan State team. They lost 5 games. And it was a 7-6 game in which Michigan State botched a couple field goals or they would have won the game. So that was the best win for the Pac-12. I'm thinking Stanford Pitt by 1 point, Pitt lost 7 games. So there were no really good wins. Washington coming back, making it respectable against Ohio State might have been the best showing in some regards. And Utah blew a big opportunity, obviously, in not putting away Northwestern.
Right. Arizona State, they lost to a very good Fresno State team. Fresno State comes rolling in there, and they were like 11-1 or 12-1 or something like that. And I was in Vegas for that bowl game, and it was, a lot of Sun Devil fans thought they were just going to roll in and kick this team from Fresno out of the stadium, and Fresno bullied them. Kind of like the Ducks got bullied by Boise State the year before in Vegas. And we just have, I just think in the Pac-12, we rely so much on speed, RPOs and getting people out in space. You kind of have to bully some people. You got to put your knuckles in the ground a little bit. We got to get a little bit more physical out here. And I do think that there are some recruits that see that. They pay attention to that kind of thing. And they're like, well, okay, Washington or Utah or Oregon, they're soft. They can't man up and physically move people around. And I think that does affect recruiting out here. I mean, shoot, we had one recruit, he came out, and I can't remember where he went, but he's not coming to the Pac-12 because he talked about the referees and just how bad it is out there. He was a DB from somewhere, and he mentioned that. And whether or not that's true or not, if big-time recruits are throwing that kind of stuff out there, their perception is getting to these young kids about the Pac-12.
So you talk about perception. Yeah, it goes as specific as the officiating and the commissioner, and that's a whole other topic. Michael Wilson on the line from Sirius Channel 211, the Dorf on Sports, and also Pacific Takes. Unfortunately, out of time. But Michael, we appreciate you stopping by. I'm sure we've got a whole lot more we could dig in on this conference.
Absolutely.
But I appreciate the time, sir.
Yeah, anytime. Let me know. Just message me, and I'm willing to do this again for sure.